Today, we're diving into a really unique way of looking at harm and justice. It's a framework that argues the most dangerous wounds, well, they're the ones you can't even see. Let's get into it. So let's just start with this question, because it's at the heart of everything we're talking about. Forget about the obvious stuff, broken bones, visible scars. What if the absolute worst kind of suffering is the kind that works in the shadows, the kind that's hidden from view but is just devastating in its impact? To really get our heads around this, the source material gives us this powerful analogy. And it starts with this toothbrush. Just imagine trying to use this thing. There's no trick here, right? The harm is immediate, it's obvious. It's a brick. You know it's going to hurt. And it does. This is straightforward evil, plain and simple. Okay, but now things get a little trickier. Deceit enters the picture. The second toothbrush, it looks totally normal. It's got soft bristles, looks inviting, but hiding right underneath that surface is the exact same hard brick. So you're manipulated into trusting it, and the harm that follows is this painful shock. It's a betrayal of that trust. And then there's the third one, and this is where it gets truly dangerous. This toothbrush doesn't just hide the brick, it actually lays tempting little traps within the bristles. It uses deceit to make you want to use it, to pull you in before it delivers a catastrophic blow. It's a nasty combination of manipulation and a deadly conspiracy. So, you're probably wondering, where do these definitions of harm even come from? Well, to understand that, we have to look at the theological foundation the source material is built on. This core concept of one God, one reality. All right, so the whole foundation here starts with the concept of Yahuwah. Now, this isn't just a name. It's meant to be the singular ultimate reality, the first and only Lord who came out of nothingness before time and space were even a thing. So if Yahuwah is singular, what in the world is Elohim? The source uses this really cool analogy. Imagine you have one single big room. Now imagine that room gets divided up internally, creating a bunch of smaller rooms inside of it. Elohim is described just like that. It's an internal pluralization, a multiplicity that exists within the absolute oneness of Yahuwah. Okay, so now let's tie it all together. Let's connect that toothbrush analogy we started with to what the source identifies as three specific modes of satanic harm. First up, we've got Gebaseri. This is your brick toothbrush. According to the source, this is evil in its most direct, in-your-face form. Open cruelty, rigidness, obvious transgression. There is absolutely no hiding what it is. The second mode, Nasr, is the bristles over brick toothbrush. This is all about harm that's achieved through manipulation. It hides its destructive nature behind a bunch of false promises and a harmless look, all so it can betray its victims. And that brings us to the final one, Nazar. This is the trapped toothbrush, a deadly fusion. The source describes it as the manipulation of Nasr, but now it's combined with deceitful, demonic traps. It's a conspiracy that's literally designed to cause the most severe, catastrophic, invisible harm possible. Now, to make this concrete, the source gives a very specific example. It points to that famous passage in Matthew 5 and critiques it, actually labeling it a law of Nazar. So from this perspective, instructions like turn the other cheek or give away your cloak, they're not seen as virtuous. Instead, they're seen as promoting a kind of self-negating passivity that actually causes severe invisible harm to the victim.
And this all brings us to the core conflict presented in the material. This huge clash between what it defines as godly justice versus a deceptive, satanic kind of false mercy.
The source really frames this as a tale of two completely opposing laws. On one side, you've got its interpretation of Leviticus 19, which it holds up as the model for true, balanced justice. And on the other side, you have its critique of Matthew 5, which it paints as a model of false mercy that just corrupts justice and lets harm run wild. All right, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? How do you fight these kinds of invisible harm? Well, the source proposes a solution it calls the rejected cornerstone. This path is basically a 5-step process pulled from Leviticus 19. First, render a fair judgment. Do it with honesty. Second, report that sentence to the proper authority. Now, the next 3 are absolutely crucial. Do not snap in anger, even if you're provoked. Do not shield the guilty party from justice. And finally, have measured feeling, which the source defines as prioritizing your own well-being and life, your equal, over that of the person who harmed you. This one quote from the source material just sums up the entire argument perfectly. True mercy judges, false mercy corrupts. See, in this framework, mercy isn't about just ignoring a wrong. It actually requires judgment to work the right way.
Anything less is seen as a corruption that allows invisible harm to just fester.
So why does any of this matter? This is all pretty dense, esoteric stuff. Let's pull it into a practical context and really understand why it's so relevant to the real world.
The argument is pretty stark. Invisible harm is actually worse than a physical injury. And you might ask, how is that possible? Well, think about it. A broken arm gets recognized. You get sympathy, you get treatment, you get a resolution. But invisible harm, things like betrayal, psychological manipulation, it just exists in this kind of permanent limbo, right? There's no validation and no clear path to ever getting closure.
So, to address this, the source proposes a huge paradigm shift. Legally, it's calling for psychological harm to be treated as real, actionable damage. Medically, it's advocating for care models that truly understand and validate trauma. And socially, it calls for something it terms critical empathy, which is basically the ability to believe and respond to someone's suffering even when you can't physically see the wound.
And that's what I want to leave you with, a final, powerful question to think about. If we apply this framework, what are the hidden, manipulative, or deceptive harms, those invisible bricks hiding behind soft bristles, that are shaping our lives, our societies, and our entire world right now?